Jacob Mensa sat in his luxurious penthouse in Accra, Ghana, staring at the skyline with a troubled heart. Despite his wealth and influence as the CEO of Mensa Group, one of Africa's most powerful investment firms, something felt incomplete. Over the years, he had been surrounded by people who saw him as nothing more than a walking bank account. Women flocked to him for his status, not his heart, and he was tired of it. One evening, after yet another failed date where the woman only spoke about his money, Jake made a drastic decision. He would disappear. He would leave behind his wealth, his cars, his tailored suits, and live as an ordinary man, a homeless wanderer in a new city. Perhaps in the dirt and struggle of the real world, he would find what he had always longed for: genuine love. The next morning, he boarded a flight to Lagos, Nigeria, where no one would recognize him. As the streets of Lagos swallowed him, Jake felt a strange sense of freedom. He slept on benches, shared meals with strangers, and watched the city from a perspective he had never known. But his heart remained guarded until the night he met her. Sophia Adeyemi was a name everyone in Lagos knew. She was the CEO of Adeyemi Holdings, a real estate empire that had built some of the most luxurious estates in Nigeria. Her name alone commanded respect, and her beauty was just as striking as her wealth. Yet, behind her power and grace, she had little patience for men, especially those beneath her status. To Sophia, men were either weak or greedy. They either wanted her for her money or were too intimidated by her success to even try. She had been engaged once, but after catching her fiancé cheating with her secretary, she swore never to love foolishly again. Now, she focused on her business, keeping her emotions locked away. One evening, after a long day, she decided to take a drive through the city to clear her mind. That was when she saw him sitting by a fire in an alley, feeding a stray dog. Something about him irritated her, yet intrigued her at the same time. Why did he sit so confidently, as if the streets belonged to him? Out of sheer curiosity, Sophia stepped out of her car and walked toward the strange man. "You shouldn't be here," she said, arms crossed. Jake looked up, unimpressed. "Neither should you." His voice was deep, calm, and strangely familiar, but she dismissed it. Sophia frowned. "I could help you, you know. Get you a job, a place to stay." But Jake only chuckled. "And why would you do that? Because you feel guilty about your riches?" His words struck a nerve. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. "Suit yourself," she scoffed, turning to leave. But as she walked back to her car, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something different about him, something she couldn't quite explain. Sophia tried to forget about the man in the alley, but she couldn't. His voice, his confidence, it stayed with her. She found herself taking the same route every evening, her eyes searching for him before she even realized what she was doing. And each time, he was there, sitting like a king on a throne of nothingness. One night, against her better judgment, she brought him food. "I don't need your pity," Jake said as she handed him a plate of jollof rice. "It's not pity," she snapped. "Just eat," reluctantly. He took it, and for the first time, they sat together in silence. Over the next few weeks, she kept coming back, always bringing food, always staying a little longer. She told herself it was just curiosity, but deep down, something about him fascinated her. He spoke like a man who had seen the world, who understood life in a way most men didn't. Sophia began testing him, throwing questions at him that no homeless man should be able to answer. "What do you think about Africa's economic growth?" she asked one evening. Without hesitation, Jake responded, breaking down the continent's financial trends with the precision of a Wall Street analyst. "How do you know so much?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. He only smiled. "I listen, I observe," but she wasn't satisfied. No ordinary homeless man spoke like that. That night, as she lay in bed, she felt something strange creeping into her heart. For the first time in years, she was interested in a man, and he had nothing. Sophia decided to push her curiosity further. She invited Jake to a charity gala she was hosting, insisting that he clean up and attend as her guest. "I don't belong in your world," he said, shaking his head. But something in her eyes made him reconsider. She arranged for him to be dressed in an elegant agbada, and when he stepped out, she was speechless. He looked like a king, his strong features highlighted by the regal fabric. For the first time, she felt a strange nervousness around him. At the gala, all eyes were on Jake. He moved through the crowd effortlessly, speaking with politicians and business moguls as though he had known them forever. Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. Who was this man? As the evening went on, an old rival of hers, Chief Oniru, approached. "And who might this be?" he sneered, eyeing Jake. Before Sophia could answer, Jake responded in perfect Yoruba, countering Onira's snide remarks with eloquence. The older man paled, recognizing something familiar in him. "You speak like a man who has dined with kings," Oniru muttered suspiciously, but Jake only smiled. "Perhaps I have." Sophia watched the exchange, her heart pounding. The more she learned about him, the more mysterious he became. That night, as she drove him back, she finally asked, "Who are you really?" He met her gaze and said, "Would you still care if I told you?" The question left her restless, and for the first time in her life, she feared the answer. Unable to fight her suspicions any longer, Sophia hired a private investigator. The report that came back shocked her to her core. Jake was not a homeless man. He was Jacob Mensa, the billionaire CEO of Mensa Group. Her heart pounded as she processed the truth. He had lied to her. He had played with her emotions. But then, another terrifying realization struck. She had fallen in love with him. Furious and heartbroken, she confronted him the next evening. "You made a fool of me," she yelled. But Jake's face remained calm. "I needed to know if love without wealth was possible," he said softly. "And now, I need to know, will you still love me?" Sophia was speechless. She wanted to hate him, to walk away and never look back. But she couldn't. He had changed her, made her see love differently, and that scared her. "I don't know," she whispered, turning away. "I don't know if I can forgive this." Jake watched her leave, knowing this was not the end, just the beginning of something far more complicated. As Sophia drove away, a new thought crept into her mind. Had she been the one tested, or was Jake the one truly at risk of losing everything? If you like our stories, please don't forget to like and subscribe and drop a comment. Thank you.